It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and today we're looking at a brand new Ultraman item, and it's not an Ultra Replica. I actually did get a deluxe transformation item. It does happen every once in a while, but this is actually the first time I bought one near the beginning of the show. I did get the D-Flasher, but that was pretty much when most of Decker was over. But Ultraman Blazar's Blazar Brace caught my eye. So for those unaware, Ultraman Blazar is the latest Ultraman series. As you can see, several Ultraman behind him here. But he is the latest Ultraman, and in the show, the Blazar Brace, unlike the last few years, which have used multiple gimmick items and have multiple forms, Blazar currently just has the one form. So you only really need this little box right here. If you want to do like your show-accurate transformation stuff, you just need the Blazar Brace and the Blazar Stone. You don't even need the Zet Stone that comes with it. But then in order for Bandai to fill out the toy features as well as the toy line in general, there are extra Blazar Stones. So this set we're looking at today is the Blazar Brace Strongest set, which includes the Blazar Brace and then set 1 and set 2 of the Blazar Stones. So that way we have kind of a good variety to go off of. And it's pretty neat. So essentially, while you have your normal Blazar features for Blazar, you also get special transformations. And they each have a different visual pattern to them, which matches to how their Rise transformation sequences work in show. Like these are essentially kind of like the backgrounds as they're flying towards the screen, which is pretty cool. And then on top of that, if you were an early purchase person, there was a special extra New Generation Stone with Ultraman Zero. So that's what we're looking at today. We're going to be looking at the whole box together, the Blazar Brace, the 2 stone sets, as well as that special stone, and then see if I'm going to keep buying more of these stones to go with this brace. All right, so first we're going to look at the Blazar Stones. They are very pretty. So the first 2 that we look at were the ones that came with the brace itself if you buy just the brace. That, of course, Ultraman Blazar, technically the only one you need out of these, because this is the only one that appears in the show so far. Now, what's cool about the Blazar Stones is they do have this kind of rock-like design, this little crystal layer on top of it. I will note that Blazar is a little bit less transparent than the others, a little bit more opaque, so it's like not as shiny as some of the others, which is kind of interesting. There is a little bit of a sculpted arrow, and that arrow is to tell you what direction to put it into the Blazar Brace. And on the back, it's got a reader system that is similar to the Yokai medals from Yokai Watch, which is pretty interesting. There also is a product code, B001, so each of the medals is coded, or each of the stones is coded. Sorry, I keep going back to medals because of the shape they are. But each of the stones is coded accordingly, so if you're wondering if which one is which sound, it's a coding system Bandai's used since all the way back in Ranger Keys for Kaizuko Sendai Go Kaiger. But anyways, it's got a nice shine to it. Then here is Ultraman Zet. It does sort of, you have to test your knowledge about how much you know the profile silhouettes of Ultraman here. And I think it's also why I keep calling them medals, because the Ultra medals from Ultraman Zet were also, profile shots. But these are kind of a little bit more abstract. They're not just a straight up photo. But you can see Zet's got the, the holes in the fin and everything. He is B011. Then in set 1, we get Ultraman. Just the original Ultraman. He's got a nice pink colored. He is B014. So there you go, you got that. Here is Ultraman Tiga, which is another appropriate occlusion because Tiga is still very popular. He's got a nice purple filter to him. And he is B015. And then we've got, this is Ultraman Ginga. He's got a nice blue on him, and Ginga's is B013. And then here is Decker. Decker was the previous Ultraman, so we got yellow color for him, B012. Then over here, set 2. So here's Ultraman Zero. You can see very similar to Zet. This is where some of them get confusing, like if you don't know your exact Ultraman shapes. But he is B084. Then we've got same set, Ultraman Belial, his eternal rival there. Pretty cool, and he is B152. Then Ultraman Victory, who goes with Ginga from the previous set, which is cool. He is B099. And then here is Ultraman Trigger, which goes with Decker and Tiga, B137. And then the New Gen Stone, which is the bonus one. If you get the early purchase bonus, it's not included in the box as a separate item. So look for listings to see if they mention if it comes with it. But it's got Ultraman Zero holding the Battlenizer from New Generation Chronicle New Generation Stars. and that is a B205. And this one does a special sound that is different than the Ultraman 01 that you get normally. These are two different stones, and they make two different sounds. So I just want to show off the stones. They're very pretty, but let's get to the Blazar Brace itself. So here is the Blazar Brace. It's a pretty large device, all things considered. You can hold it pretty good. It's got a wrist strap on it. The thing takes 3 AAAs. The battery compartment is here. You push a little button down and you can slide it off, and there's 3 AAAs that go in place. The wrist strap is kind of similar to the ones they've been using for Super Sentai lately, which means it's a giant plasticky thing with a cover. For me, I got small-ish wrists here, so, I can go the 3rd peg down. It's a little tight, but yeah, so you can see it fits on pretty good. It goes on the wrist. If you have any larger wrists than what it has, you'll probably have to get a replacement strap of some kind, something that just fits through here. I do notice it slides in and out pretty easily, but for the most part, this will do the job of holding it on your wrist, which is pretty good. So it's got, a decent strap. I kind of miss the old nylon straps that Bandai used to do. The plastic ones just don't feel as nice. In general, when you're wearing it, you will have to deal with like those grooves getting into your arm. So keep that in mind. But for the purposes of demonstration, we're just going to leave it here. It's going to be much easier than wearing it throughout the video. Here is the stone slot. So when you have your stones, they go straight in like this, and that'll pop that open. And then if you want to eject the stones, you push this button in the back and it pushes it forward. You can pull it out. You can also see there is a rail system in there to read the stones. This button is going to activate all your buttons. So if you're wearing it, don't put it on backwards. One of the cast members did that during the press conference. But you want to put it this way so that the stone slot, the red part, is facing inward towards you. And then that way you can have the button much easier to be accessible. The on-off switch is down here, and then when you turn it on, you're going to get a really nice display of the screen. But the one thing I will say about the screen, because I'm sure you can see it, it's very black, it's very matte, it's very glossy. It's not very matte, it's glossy, like completely. Dust, fingerprints, all kinds of stuff will get on that. It's a similar screen to the Digimon Super Complete Selection Animation Digivices, where it just attracts dust, but then the light is so bright that you actually don't notice it as much when it's on, but when it's off, you'll like notice the dirt, which is kind of a bummer. I kind of wish they would come up with some solution to that. Hopefully this isn't like some of the Digivices where the dirt gets on the inside and you're like, how did it get in there? And then you can't get it out. On that note, let's turn this thing on and hear some of its bass sound effects. So as you can see, pressing that button when you don't have a stone inserted, you get lines from Captain Gento himself, which I think is really cool. It's rare that we get toys at launch that have the actor voices in them, because usually the toys are in development when they're filming the show. But because Blazar was shot so far in advance, they actually were able to work in dialogue options for Captain Gento himself, which is really, really cool. So that way you get the host of the Ultraman as well as the Ultraman sound, which I think is super awesome. It's something we haven't seen from the jump. Like, there's no point in them doing a memorial edition of this because they've already put a bunch of lines in here. It's really cool because you go through some different sounds, some that may be familiar, some that don't seem familiar yet, like him calling out for Ultraman Blazar, which we haven't heard in the show. You also may notice that because of the light function, there's going to be spinning LEDs, there is a slight hum sound that you can hear. It's not as loud as something like the Drive Driver from Kamen Rider Drive or some other similar toys. Definitely not as bad as Kamen Rider Kuga or Kamen Rider Agito's bells. But this does have a light hum to it. What I have noticed is when you don't have it on your wrist, it sounds way louder than if you do. Like if you have it on the wrist, I think your like bone density will absorb a lot of the sound of the spinning motor. Yeah, you can hear it more when you're wearing it, when you're not wearing it, as opposed to when you're wearing it. And also the sound effects later, aside from the voice clips, are going to be much louder, so it'll cover over that. But now it's time to initiate the transformation to Ultraman Blazar with this Blazar Stone. So there we go. That is the sounds the main Blazar Stone makes. Of note, you may see a slight flicker of the light, like losing a bit, in its circular motion. In person, that is not the case. The flicker is caused by the camera not syncing up to the frame rate of the device. Essentially, there's just I noticed it in camera, and it should be the same in editing unless I can fix it, where it's just blinking a little bit and you're losing a bit of the circular image. It stays circular the entire time. It's just really hard to capture due to the nature of the spinning light. But yeah, that's all the sounds you get with the main Blazar Stone. You get the transformation, of course, and then you get several attack sounds and a bunch of Blazar's weird grunting that he does throughout the battles. So that's pretty cool. And in general, if you want just the, what is used in the show, currently, this is it. All you need is this brace and this stone. But, of course, we have other stones, since Bandai does love their Legacy Ultra gimmicks. It's just nice they didn't force them into the show and let the show stand alone a little bit. So let's see what the Ultraman Z stone sounds like. So this is what sold me on getting the set with multiple stones. Because, as you heard, we didn't just have, the transformation sound and the grunts and the attack sound for Zet like you would in other Legacy Ultra gimmicks. You actually had the voice of Haruki calling out for Zet's name, and also Ultraman Zet saying, "Chant my name, Ultraman Zet," and Haruki saying, "Ultraman Zet." And that's pretty cool that that's within here, is that you actually get some of the Ultra hosts' voices. Now, this won't be the case with every single Ultra Stone. It's pretty much only the new generation ones, but that's honestly enough of a thing to keep me going to collect these because I love hearing those extra voices included. And it's really, really cool to see. So, of course, we do have more stones, so let's demo those stones. So with Stone Set 1, we're going to start with Ultraman, which is probably the most generic out of all of these. Now, of course, Ultraman was a show that aired in, the early 60s, so it doesn't have a crazy amount of sound effects, but there's nothing really special about it. You get kind of a standard sound, but you do get a new light pattern that is exclusive to Ultraman. So this one is much more limited in sounds than the Ultraman Z one because there's less sounds to pull from, but in general they do seem to favor the new generation stones as having more effects than the Showa ones. So let's take a look at a Heisei Ultra with Ultraman Tiga, where we get a little bit more sound, but not honestly that much more. So with both Tiga and Ultraman, you get pretty much just transformation sound, grunt, attack. That's pretty much it. Is there something more exciting though, is when we get to Ginga, as Ginga was the first new generation Ultraman. So there's definitely more sounds with Ginga, though because we don't have a separate voice for the host, Hikaru, and Ultraman Ginga himself, as they were one being, there isn't as many sounds as the Zet one. Alright, last up in set 1 is Decker. Decker runs a similar gambit to Ginga, but definitely has more sounds than Ultraman or Tiga. So set one's an interesting assortment where you have two that don't do that much and two that feel a little bit fancier. It's definitely feeling like more that the new gen Stones are the ones that are more worthwhile in terms of their sound effects compared to their older Ultra counterparts. Moving over to Stone Set 2, we have Ultraman Zero. While technically not a new generation Ultraman, he does have some extra sound effects because he's Zero and he's popular. Now on the flip side of that, Belial has a little bit more limited because, well, Belial doesn't have a traditional transformation to begin with. Now Victory, being a new generation Ultraman, should have some more sounds to him. And then our last regular stone for this video is Ultraman Trigger. Much like the other new gen Ultras, he definitely has that full sound range. So if you're not buying the strongest set and just want to know which of the two stone sets I think is more worth it, it's definitely set 2. Having Zero, Victory, and Trigger with all extra sounds and voice lines, and then even Belial having his crazy little laugh, makes this feel like a more complete set than set 1, which sort of runs off of, well, we got to make Ultraman and Tiga even though we don't have fancy sounds for them. Now the last stone, which I do want to re-emphasize, does not come packaged inside the box. So if you're looking at an online retailer, see if they mention this at all, because this is a extra bonus stone. But this one will play some special sounds. It's going to do the rise calls of and grunts of Zero through Decker. So essentially you're going to hear a bunch of Ultraman just shouting, but it's Zero through Decker, and then they just kind of run through all of them back to back. And then you get a special line from Captain Gento afterwards, which is pretty cool. So at the end of that, basically, after you get all these sounds of Zero through Decker, then you get Captain Gento saying, "I'll take it from here, Ultraman Blazar." And thanks to Collector K9 for that translation. But yeah, it's a pretty cool stone, but it's not a necessity if you're looking for like unique transformations, but it's cool if you can get it. So overall, I like the Blazar Brace quite a bit. I especially like the fact that because the newest series is downplaying the legacy gimmick in show and not having it, it means you can just get the Blazar Brace and be good. Especially if you've got these sound effects in other toys, because you might at this point. I mean, Orb Ring, Ultra Replica has a bunch of these sounds. The Decker Dimension cards did as well. And for me personally, I don't see myself collecting every single stone, unless P-Bandai puts out a set. I did that with Decker, like I got the Memorial, or the Complete Edition card set, and that got me like pretty much all the sounds of all the main Ultras, and I really like that. I don't feel like doing the hunt for these, but I could see how collecting these could be really fun. There's going to be Candy Toy exclusives, Gosh Buy exclusives, apparel exclusive, magazine bonuses. Like, if you want to do a scavenger hunt, it's a great time. I've done it in the past. These days, I don't do it as much. Though I will probably pick up the deluxe sets, at least to finish out the new generation Ultras. You know, in this box, you get a lot of them, but I still need X, Orb, Jeed, Rosso, Blue, and Taiga. So yeah, I definitely want to get those because I feel like those have the most sounds in here. Plus, the next set to come out does have X, Orb, and then also Juggalish Juggler in it, so I'm kind of already sold on that set at least. But if I do more videos, you want to hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out. I don't know if I'll do them as full reviews or as YouTube shorts. You'll have to find out and see. While you're down there, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and tell me which is your favorite of these Blazar stones that are, you know, what your favorite lights and sound combos are, because I love the light combinations. I think that's what really sells this thing too. It's not just the sounds, but the lights. And then also, be sure to check out my live streams Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, where I go live here on this YouTube channel. And we talk about Ultraman and all kinds of good stuff. And if you want to continue the conversation, check out the Discord protocol link in the description below. You can come join the Discord community and talk about Ultraman and all kinds of good stuff there. If you also want to find me on social media, I am still on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, as long as those are still applicable. You can find my awesome graphic designer in our Discord server at DarkClaw643, and you can also find Hero Club at HeroesClub.com for Ultraman interviews, news, and more. But on that note, that is all for this review, so until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.